Hello all and welcome back to High Ridge Farm with me, the Walrus. It's the 9th of spring today and we have some things to do. Now, yesterday I spent the entire day just reorganizing the house and just making it look a little bit neater. I also had a little bit of time that I was able to nip over to Ginger Island, where I obtained a couple of interesting things. One of them, because I delved into the volcano for a little bit, is this little frog pet thing, which eats things, which is great. I actually figured out I'm an idiot, because I'd had the golden spur, but couldn't figure out that there was literally a little gap on the player display screen, where one would allocate, you know, your boots and clothing items. I totally didn't notice the trinket slot. The other thing that I realised and picked up was the fact that it is now a Mr. Key quest to grow key fruit. So I managed to get a little bit of key beans by delving into the volcano and just detonating large quantities of bombs everywhere. Hence why there's some key fruit growing down there now. So, what I've discovered about that little frog is that when it kills an enemy, you don't get any of the loot drops from it, which is kind of disappointing, but at the same time it is very useful to just remove the enemy out of the way. Now, I'm quite pleasantly surprised by the fact that the lava eels give cave jelly. Now, that is going to make my life a hell of a lot easier, because that now means I only need one of the sea jelly, and then I've got enough to make a smoker, which is, shocking enough, what I'm really after at this moment in time. Now, one of the things that I'm also doing is I'm making some tea plants, so hence why I'm using the common mushrooms to turn into the fall seeds, because it's the easiest seed, I believe, to actually make, because especially if you've got the mushroom cave, you're gonna get a lot of common mushrooms. It's kind of a given, I would assume. And because of that, of course, that then means that I have lots and lots and lots of, well, not really annoying, but I have a lot of annoying opportunity to actually gather mushrooms, because they're not really that valuable, the common mushroom. But being able to use them for making seeds so I can make tea plants, that's exactly what I'm after. Because what I'd like to do moving forwards is, before the end of the next couple of weeks, I'd like to have tea plants filling half of that particular shed. Because that way I'll then have, oh, what am I thinking? I'll have I'll have enough tea plants as well as enough of the coffee plants to actually make a constant, decent amount of both beverages. The tea, it's not as useful in the grand scheme of things, I don't think, but the energy bonus, I think it gives us to a max energy of about 30, is pretty damn handy, I'll certainly say. Now, one of the things that I'm trying to figure out as well is, this is currently turning into the beer shed, as this is where I'm using all of the hops. Now, I could have sworn I had a bunch more wheat, but what I'm thinking is I probably used the wheat to turn into flour, which, knowing me, would probably make sense, because I do a lot of dumb stuff anyway, and I'm painfully aware of the fact that I do a lot of dumb stuff, so I'm not super concerned about that. Now, the dried pineapple is coming through. One of these days, I should probably double check and see what the price difference is between a pineapple jelly and dried pineapples, because I'm assuming and hoping that the dried pineapple is at least 5 times as valuable, considering I've used 5 fruit for it. At the same time, though, it might give a lower return because it doesn't take anywhere near as long. I think it's less than a day for it to actually be made. So perhaps it's less, but still, viably still pretty good. Now, one of the other things that I've actually managed to gather a couple of are these animal cracker type things, the treats that you give to an animal, which doubles its yields. Now, considering my thought process at the moment is I'd like to have a fully dinosaur shed. That's kind of a given, I think. I think that'd be really cool. But if I want to maximize my mayo production, it would probably make sense for me to really go for the golden chickens as opposed to the regular ones. Now, I'm still going to want to keep a blue chicken because the blue chicken is adorable and it's also kind of not unique, but it's still very cool. But the other thing I'm sort of thinking about is whether I'd be able to use more of these crackers that double the yield to create a greater quantity of these golden eggs, which of course each provide 3 of the mayonnaise each time, which is again just more maximum money spinning. Now, the only reason I've got the Horde of Dinosaur shed is just because I like the idea of just a horde of dinosaurs. But at the same time, for money purposes, maybe it's not that viable. Okay, yes, dinosaur mayo, I think, does sell for significantly more, but the rate at which it is produced is significantly slower because of the rate of eggs. It's not like you get an egg a day like you do with the golden chicken egg, which is still actually quite surprising. I hadn't anticipated the golden chickens would lay an egg every day. Now, of course, if I can double that up and then have a coop with maybe 9 golden chickens, 1 blue chicken, a rabbit, and a duck. Because that way I'll have a nice mix of things, but also I won't feel like I've... not like I've overspent, is probably not the right way of thinking about it, but I wouldn't have over-pushed myself almost on actually what I need. So I think that would work out quite well as then having just 12 dinosaurs in the other coop, because I think that'll be cute. Now, animals themselves they weren't initially that valuable. I didn't think that they, like, other than pigs, the other animals couldn't really compete. Now, I know I've only got a pair of pigs, but that's mostly because I'm just not fond of pigs as an animal. So I wanted to have a mixture of other things and like making cheese and milk, and I think that's more fun. But the fact that I could, in theory, have a goat that is producing double quantities of milk is absolutely fantastic. Now, the first animal I actually gave one of these golden cracker type things to was actually my ostrich. Well, one of my ostriches, because I have a few, and I think I might sell one of them, because I do have a lot of ostriches. But the fact that I've given it to that means that, of course, I end up with twice as many ostrich eggs when they do lay them, which, of course, is very beneficial because the quantity of mayonnaise that one gets out of an ostrich egg is, well, 10. But at the same time, is that really as viably useful compared to the idea of having a greater number of golden chickens that produce 3 each and lay an egg every day, whereas I think an ostrich only lays an egg once a week? So in that same space, you're getting 21 eggs, which would give me a grand total of 63 mayonnaise versus just 10. And I think actually on a quantity and quality basis, it might be just better off having more of the golden chickens. Yes, it's cool having the ostrich, but maybe I don't need 3 of them, because I've got quite a few. So I might sell a couple of them later on, see what I want to do. I'm not sure at this point, so it's very much of a, maybe, is the current stance on that sort of like source of logic. Now, Robin has annoyed me because, of course, she's decided that she wanted to go over to the island today, which is very frustrating because I wanted to get her to sort out the attic, because I did eventually figure out how to move that picture off of the wall. Now, it sounds very stupid, but because I use a controller to play the game, it was actually being quite difficult to actually access. So what I did is I used the mouse. And I know that might sound very silly, but I know I've mentioned in the past I play with a controller because I find it more comfortable to lean back in my chair and play, rather than where I'm not saying I have a particularly bad posture, but leaning forwards, hands forward, especially considering I work with a computer in my day job, I just wanted to avoid having hands-on keyboard, desk sort of scenario a bit more. So it's a bit easier for me doing that, which I think is generally better. But that's out of the way there. That's my kind of logic for doing that. And, yeah, that's kind of how that's worked so far for my logic, I guess. So, of course, now I'm back on Ginger Island for the moment, as we've got many things that we do need to sort out. Now, I'm growing lots of taro at the moment, again because I wanted to gather all of the items from the island trader, because I wasn't sure what they actually had available and if I wanted to get anything else. Now, I do have those 2 mannequins that I would actually quite like to sort of decorate. Now, clothing items are actually one of the things that I've not really ever dabbled with. I mean, yes, okay, I've made the Gumby shirt. I think that's what this green one's called. But I would like to see what other things you can actually make and what putting different items in actually does. Now, I know that the dyes are done at Haley's and Emily's house. Well, their parents' home, because one would assume at this point that my wife might consider this to be our house rather than just, you know, my house and then she lives with her sister. Which would be, yeah, silliness aside there. But that's something that I do really want to actually have a look into a bit more. Actually trying to figure out what can I do when it comes to making things, I guess, and what would work well. Because that's a thing that I don't really know. Like, I don't actually know what I can make with the sewing machine. What can I actually do with it? I mean, okay, I know some of the very basics. Like, for example, I know that if you use a bolt of cloth and a key fruit, you make a key mask. Because I think that's about the only thing I've actually made outside of this Gumby shirt. So I'd like to see what I can make. And again, I'm trying not to use the wiki. As in, I say trying, I'm not using the wiki. So I need to try and figure out if there's a... I don't want to use a resource for it, but I'm going to try and fudge my way through it, I think. It's probably going to involve me doing a lot of dumb stuff, but if you do know of a particularly kind of fun item, or an interesting article of clothing, please do tell me below. I'm not exactly going to go for a tuxedo, but if there is a tux, that would be quite fun to make and farm in a tuxedo, because the idea of a James Bond-esque look whilst one farms is an interesting and silly idea. I like it because it's dumb, which kind of suits me to a T, really, doesn't it? Doing dumb stuff. Yep, that's the walrus through and friggin' through. But yeah. At the moment, I'm just trying to catch myself some of that blasted sea jelly. Because I just need the one to make a single fish smoker. Of course, I want more, because I would like to make more than one fish smoker. Because I don't actually know how quickly it smokes fish. I'm genuinely curious to see what sort of like the conversion rate and time is. I know it requires coal to smoke a fish, because it tells you that in the description. But I don't know what the turnaround time is for it. So that's actually what I'm really curious about, is how quickly can I get something kind of useful? And how much does it actually affect the sale value of the item? Because that is, again, another sort of a question that one might want to ask is, what's the multiplier? What's its benefit to me? And I do believe it is a multiplier to the sale value of the of that particular fish. So that's kind of good if that is. So let's us hopefully catch some. I mean, it's nice that I'm catching lots of fish. Just it'd be nice to catch something not as useful as a fish, which sounds very silly to say. But again, as of course now that I'm aware the way that it's done, that one can actually gather them from, well, getting cave jellies from the lava eels. Now that's really handy. But then that then begs the question, is there a fish that gives sea jelly? And if so, which fish? Because when I look at the different things that I have on the farm in the fishing ponds, I've got the squid, which I'm indifferent to, and I may remove them from that, because it's not the regular squid, it's the midnight squid I have in there, which, yeah, they can produce the squid ink, and that was actually why I had them, so I could gather a lot of squid ink. But the thing is, I've got quite a lot anyway from that fish pond, as well as actually from delving into the mines. Ah, we've got some sea jelly, thank goodness. But I've also got them in a larger quantity from, what's it called? You know when you have that brain fart and you just go, I genuinely can't remember what I was thinking. It's a wonderful joy. But what I was trying to figure out was, is there much, not point per se, but is there a fish that I could replace the squid for, and potentially the sturgeon? Because yes, the caviar is different and it does sell for a lot, but it doesn't sell as much, weirdly, I think, as the lava eel roe when it's preserved. So I'm kind of feeling that that's a better choice for me, in honesty, and that's probably where I should kind of go for. I mean, that's the better option, I believe, is just going with what can give me the most money or what can give me the most beneficial, useful items. So if I can get a fish pond that has a chance, well, one that gives me a chance of river jelly, one for sea jelly, and one for cave jelly, which I do have the cave jelly one, being that that's the lava eels, that would be particularly beneficial, I think, because that would give me a decent ability to not have to try and farm it as much out of actually catching them. So that's kind of where I'm looking. What actually that could be, I don't know. But we're going to make a smoker. There we go, so that's a smoker. And it gives... So I know I need to do a chub first, because that's the fish that I need for the raccoon, whose house is just outside of my own. I'm still very curious as to what I can do with said raccoon, if anything. But it is kind of nice that I'm essentially getting a little bit of a My Neighbor Totoro sort of feel here with my weird little... Well, I say weird, my odd little tree house thing outside of the home, and with a talking raccoon, which is very cute and adorable and just strange as a concept. I'm very curious to see what that can actually give. So, and what even if it does anything at all, I'm not sure. One would assume and hope so, because I mean I've given it some snails. I mean I know that's not exactly a particularly powerful resource to hand over to something, is it? Oh, here you go, you want some snails, go nuts, mate. It's yeah, I'm aware that's a bit weird, but at the same time, when am I not being weird? It's a constant curse, I will say. But anyway, let's quickly have a look through. So I do need some more wild seeds of any description, so I can keep cracking on with that. I think that's a reasonable thing to want to try and do, really. I think wild seeds are where it's at. And they're easy to make from mushrooms. I don't think you can make them from that many other... I'm genuinely trying to think of what other items that one could use to make those seeds. Like, because you can't easily grow a lot of the other things other than maybe grapes, but I would assume that if you put a grape into one, you'd just get a grape starter into a seed maker. You like a grapevine, you wouldn't get a wild seed thing, which I think is the strange aspect of the fact that that's also a forageable item as well as a growable item, which is a bit different, I guess. So we've got our smoked chub. I do like the fact that it has a smoke particulate animation. That's quite cute. That is making me quite happy. I like that. So we'll see how well this works out for us. Hopefully quite well, to be fair. But again, we will see. We might have something really good. But we're going to quickly mount up. I know the time we're pushing it a bit here, being that it is almost 1 AM, but I think I should be able to hand over a fish and then just teleport back to the house. Again, it's as soon as you get the return scepter, it's so good. And believe me, I'm genuinely shocked at how effective it has been. and how very easy it is to use, and it makes life so much easier. It's phenomenal. Okay, so we've smacked the ground there. Now maybe I find a wife. So after we've given the raccoon the fish he required, he's on a hunt for a wife. Fair enough, I guess. Sort of a you do you, boo. Hopefully one can find one's wife, I guess. If that's your goal. I mean, the raccoon, now that we know that they are hunting, they are a bachelorette raccoon. We know that they've got a home and they want a spouse. I mean, having a house is generally a good shout if you want to get married, I guess. I'm not saying you need to own a home before you get married, but like having somewhere to live together is generally a good idea, whether be it rented or owned. So, righty Haley, what are we doing now? You're making a mess. That's adorable. Ooh, yeah, okay, fair enough. You can have a kiss before I go. It's very much one of those things I'm like, ooh, maybe. Ooh, I don't know. I'm sure you can have a kiss. Yeah, go on. Just because you asked so nicely. And it has been quite amusing because some of my friends who've been talking about Stardew Valley are still like, why did you marry Haley? Meh, meh, meh. And it was just because she's one of the bachelorettes I've never married before. So I want to, you know, try and keep things different. I did find that I found Maru very boring and uninteresting, but maybe she's a bit different from when I first married her, because I think she was the third character I married when I played originally, when Stardew Valley was new. So, I don't know. Who knows? I'm curious to see, and I know that there are a bunch of mods so you can actually marry some of the other characters. And there's a few more interactions later on because of like the expanded mods, which again is something that I'm still not dubious to try, but I am, because I don't have much luck when it comes to doing the mods. I did fail so miserably at all of that and trying to even get it to work. I'm scared to try and embarrass myself thoroughly by going, oh, look at me, I failed at this again. But I'm curious to see what is different with the Meadowlands farm. Now, the bluegrass, I mean, I know I can make it, but there is an ingredient as part of it that I just don't have any access to. One of the things that I have realised is that the trees that I have growing there, where I've got that mossy log, they do grow moss, and I genuinely didn't realise that. It was just because I was flailing a scythe around that I actually discovered it. And yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised and very happy about it, of course, because extra free, useful moss, which I've not really been able to find much of until now, I think, which is quite a big thing for me. So it's nice that I was able to find some, and now I've just got to figure out what am I going to do with it. Now, of course, one of the things I do want to do is use it for making of that statue of blessings, because that thing will be particularly helpful to me, I believe. But it is just trying to figure out what I can really do with it, and how can I use it to the best effect, really. I think that's kind of the question, isn't it? But hey, so whilst we're roaming around the farm, I'm just going to grab some more of the mayonnaise that we're just generating lots of, which is always nice. It's a constant thing, which, well, I mean, one would assume that you'd just be able to generate a lot of it. And considering I know I haven't really delved into a lot of the farming as heavily the last couple of days, it's pretty important for me to grab and ship on out. Now, one of the things I do want to try, though, is now that you can drink mayonnaise, I would like to try doing that in front of a villager. Maybe I'll go to the bar and chug a mayonnaise and see what people say. Rather than grabbing a beer, I'll just go, oh, you know what I'm going to do? Drink a jar of this. The idea of doing that just squicks me out a little bit. Just mayo's never been one of those things that I'm super particularly fond of. But it is something that I know that, again, is an interesting divergence between culturally British English side of things versus American. In that, as far as I'm aware from my time when I lived out in the United States, that one finds mayonnaise on sandwiches a lot more commonly. Whereas in the UK, rather than using mayonnaise as not really lubricant for a sandwich, but one would actually find more butter. Butter goes onto bread, and then you'd put, for example, you might put your peanut butter onto that. And again, the different flavour combinations. But I do wonder, is there something to do with the fact that is butter not used as much in the United States when it comes to bread and butter as a type of thing in sandwiches? Is it... I mean, I wonder if there's a particular reason. I wonder if there's something like the big butter lobby or something very peculiar. Because it's been a long time since I lived in the US. I was fortunate enough that I lived out there, and I'm very glad that I had the opportunity, and it gave me an interesting understanding of what for me was a different culture. And it sounds very bizarre, potentially, to somebody who is American, that experiencing, even though there's a lot of very similar root between the two countries, there are slight differences that are kind of unusual. So, for example, even within the UK as well, this is going to be a potentially good example. I'm from the south coast of England, which is generally considered to be the posh, rich bit of England. Now, I can kind of understand that, considering the way that I talk, but my family are actually from the north of England, where people generally tend to be a lot more friendly, and it's an unusual time. If somebody greets you on the street here near where I live, you're questioning, like, why are you talking to me? What's going on? What do you want? Sort of thing. And in the same way, one does not speak to another person on a bus unless you know them, you know. But when I've travelled in the north of England, where my family are from, it's much the opposite, where even growing up in the same sized town where I grew up, my grandparents lived in a similar sort of sized town, and it was very different. People were a lot more friendly and just like, oh, hi, how's it going? Or good morning, how are you? Sort of thing, which might seem odd, especially for somebody who's grown up with that. That is the norm, whereas for me, the norm is almost, not saying hostility, but almost is, which kind of sucks. And it's not something like I like to be able to say that. Actually, that's kind of, my brain goes, why are you talking to me? What do you want? It's not the greatest of kind of ways to view people. But that's just, unfortunately, the area in which I grew up. That's just how it is. Maybe it's just that people aren't as willing or to trust others, or being as open to just speaking to people. But that was something that I found in the US. Now, although I was in a northern state, I was in Ohio. I wasn't in the south, which does appear to be a lot more... There's more of that friendly-esque... I mean, there's the whole southern charm, isn't there? But people were generally more friendly and wanting to talk to people. And it's a thing from my friends. Got a wonderful American girlfriend, and they're very much more chatty and lovely. And I see that the way that she acts and how I remember the US. And it's like, I do find it interesting how the UK versus the US, it's that, you could say we're that stiff upper lip, or you could really just say we're just horrible people, if you were being cynical. But that's a thing on that sort of front. Yeah, a bit of a weird tangent there, I'm very well aware. But then again, it's kind of related to the weird tangent I went down on the whole calling things school. But it is generally an odd thing I do find, is the surprising differences. Ooh, a book. I've learned things about farming. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Books are useful. But it is one of those things. So, like, even the friends I have who live in Australia, and the way that the culture of Australia, even though, again, we're all English speaking, it's surprisingly different. And what I'm currently trying to get used to is the way that Dutch culture works. And what I have found is they're like stereotypically, the Dutch are kind of more like an even more reserved English. They tell you things how they are. They're not going to mince their words, which is kind of brutal, as I've discovered. Very entertaining, but I have enjoyed visiting the Netherlands, and it is going to be something I do a lot more in the next few months, I think, considering I am learning Dutch. And that's the thing, is I thoroughly enjoy learning languages, and that's why it does take a while for me to learn a language, but doesn't mean I don't enjoy what I'm doing. Because I learned how to speak German, and as I mentioned in, I think, the last video I recorded, that I would actually very much like to try doing a very ridiculous German copy of one of the episodes. I'm debating whether I do just essentially like the first episode again, because I've got the base recorded footage of it, or I could even do something a bit more silly and actually maybe I could do the meadow farm, because I'm curious to see what's new in that, and actually make that into, maybe not a full series, but a couple of episodes of just seeing how well if I can translate my knowledge into a German copy of my Let's Play Stardew Valley. I mean, that'd be a fun idea for me. I'm not saying it's going to work or it'll be anything particularly good, but it would be interesting. Because I don't know if I have the ability to do the ramble. Because, of course, I've got the wonderful ADD, so my brain does go off into weird tangents all the time. But do I have that ability for my language skill to ramble like that about random nonsense? So I'm curious. But that's, again, another weird tangent. But I'm delving into the volcano again today, because I'm after some more of the... what are they called? The key seeds, because of course the more of those I get, the better. That is a very big need of mine right now. But the other thing I'm also after is trying to make sure I can gather more resources, in that I would like a little bit more iron, because I have had to use, and copper, because I've had to use a bunch of the copper to turn into iron to make an anvil. Now, the anvil allows you to reforge trinkets, and I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or not. I've not really dabbled with it, but I know you need iridium to use it, so I'm kind of curious to see when it says reforge and what does it do, reroll the stats of it. But what does that do for things like the frog? Because does the frog inherently have stats that make it eat things at a certain speed? Or when you re-roll it, does it change the colour of the frog? I don't know. I'm genuinely curious. But one of the things I have also grabbed is I did encounter the volcano dwarf when I was playing through on the Monday. And, well, the Monday of in-game at least. But one of the things that I noticed is that the volcano dwarf actually has a book for sale, which costs 10 diamonds. Because that's how far I got through to the volcano, only to the 5th floor, which is, it's an easy place to get to. But I'm curious to see what that will do for me, and of course, I mean, it's one of the many books that, of course, I'm gonna need to get them all, because that's how the game works, isn't it? You need to get all the books, that's one of the achievements, it's a thing. And, yeah, I kind of want to know. So, hello, Volcano Dwarf. What can you offer me here? Now, I know I've got the Cinderclown shoes. I'm currently wearing them. They're jingling left, right, and centre. But let's buy some bombs as well, because bombs are great. Now, I've got the book, and looks like what it does is it gives you the chance that whenever you mine anything by hand rather than detonating it, there is a chance to drop a diamond. Now, that's quite cool. But of course, it does require you to spend a bit more time when it comes to mining, rather than just... If, for example, I was trying to do delving into Skull Caves, which is what I tend to do, where I just detonate bombs left, right, and centre, because that's just the way my brain goes, that'll probably be the better way of doing things. Because clearing space is good. Oh my goodness, that frog. It's got quite a long range on it, hasn't it? Oh wow, it caught it. Well done. Well done, froggy. You did a thing. That was quite cute. I do find the frog fun. Because it's adorably tiny, and then when it eats something, it becomes enormous. I mean, look at it. It's adorable. I do like the fact that it's essentially a pet that follows you. It'd be really cool if there was a trinket that allowed one of your pets to follow you and do things. Like, even if, like, for example, the cat could randomly catch certain fish in a vicinity. Because the pets can give gifts, and I've received a couple of fish from the cat. It'd be really cool if the cat came with you, you would get random fish whilst you roamed together type thing. I think that'd be quite sweet. But the trinkets I've got so far, I've got one that gives me immunity to status effects, which is, I mean, that's good. The only status effect I'm ever really concerned about is the nauseated, because it stops you from eating. But that's what ginger beer is for, to help cure that, so that is kind of one of the reasons why I will most of the time carry some ginger beer. Not just the fact that it is a good food item anyway, but it is kind of handy to have that. So yeah, that is a thing. Okay. So yeah, I'm just inanely curious to see what can I do. What other trinkets are there? Because again, I don't know, because once again I'm not using the wiki, so I'm sort of stumbling through, and I've been lucky that I've got 3 trinkets, because I've got the Golden Spur, which gives me a speed boost when I kill something with a critical hit. I've got the Hand, which gives me an immunity to status effects, and then I've got the Frog, and I do very much like the Frog. I think it's my favourite so far. But at the same time, because of the way that it works, in that it removes the enemy from existence rather than allowing you to loot it, it is maybe not as good as I'd kind of hoped. In that sense that if you want to get the drops, you can't because, well, it's dead. And it just doesn't exist. It's removed from play. Which is fair enough, that's just how it works, but oh well. So, random rambling aside there. Let's see what other such that we can do whilst we're rambling our way through. Okay. Well, the key fruit's still got a little while to grow, but we'll just plant down what extras we've got. I really should check on the slimes. I haven't been in for a little while, actually, to check on how they're doing. And that probably wouldn't hurt for me to keep an eye on them. But that looks like we're coming up to the end of the day. So, as I quickly finish off, I'd like to bid a very fond farewell to you all. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed. If you did, please do like, share, and subscribe. They're always very beneficial. Big thank you and shout out to my patrons. And hopefully, as I said, if you've enjoyed, please do give somebody a poke in the ribs and go, you know what, you should listen to this guy. He's quite mad and British, but who knows? You might enjoy. But I will bid you all a very fond farewell, and thank you for tuning in, and hopefully I'll catch you again the next time the Walrus plays Stardew Valley.